Have you ever stopped to wonder how a truly world-changing idea actually gets off the ground? We're going to dive into an analysis of how one of the most significant movements in history got its start. And you know what? The answer is probably not what you're thinking.
So really, how does something like that happen? Is it a huge launch event, a big, flashy campaign? Well, according to this analysis, it starts, well, a lot more quietly. It usually all kicks off with a single, crucial conversation between just a handful of people.
And right there, that's the core idea. It's a chain reaction. This isn't about some big-shot leader broadcasting a message out to the masses. No, it's about one person's experience sparking curiosity in another, who then shares it with someone they know. It's personal, it's totally organic, and it turns out it's unbelievably powerful.
To really see how this all works, we've got to go back to the very beginning, to that first spark. And it involves a figure you've definitely heard of, but maybe you haven't thought of him in this exact role: John the Baptist. Now, this is a really fascinating point from the source material. You see, John already had his own crew, his own followers, but his goal wasn't to build up his own personal brand. His whole purpose, as we see here, was to basically be a living, breathing signpost, pointing away from himself and towards someone else. And this is the moment it all begins. John sees Jesus, and he says this to two of his own disciples. It's not some long theological speech. It's not a complicated argument. It's just a 6-word testimony. And believe me, those 6 words change everything.
So, what happens next? Well, that single statement doesn't just hang in the air. It creates an immediate ripple effect. A whole chain of personal invitations kicks off, and it starts to spread like wildfire.
And this just lays out the pattern so perfectly. I mean, look at this flow. John points, and 2 of his guys, one of them named Andrew, get curious enough to go check it out for themselves. Andrew is so blown away by what he finds that the very first thing he does is track down his own brother, Simon Peter. Then Jesus himself finds a guy named Philip. And what does Philip do? He immediately goes to find his buddy, Nathanael. It's literally a social network, growing one personal connection at a time.
So here's the absolute key to the whole thing: the method. How did they convince people? Well, they didn't. They just invited them. The phrase that keeps popping up over and over in the text is, "Come and see." It's not, "Hey, here are 10 reasons you have to believe this." It's just, "I found something incredible. Don't take my word for it. Come see for yourself."
But, of course, it's never that simple, is it? Not everyone is just going to jump on board with a simple invitation. The story now throws in a big dose of reality, in the form of a major skeptic.
Oh man, I love this contrast because it feels so real, doesn't it? On one side, you have Philip, who is just bursting with excitement. He's like, "We found him, the one we've all been waiting for." And on the other side, you've got his friend Nathanael, who pretty much just scoffs. "Nazareth? Are you kidding me? Can anything good come from a place like that?" That's pure cynicism, it's prejudice, and it's such a relatable human reaction.
And this brings us to a question that feels totally universal. What do you do when you run into that kind of hardened skepticism? Philip's excitement just slammed into a brick wall of doubt. So, what now?
Well, Philip does something brilliant. He sticks to the method. He doesn't argue. He doesn't try to debate him. He just says, "Come and see." And what happens next is really the climax of the story, this pivotal meeting between the ultimate doubter and the man everyone's talking about. This is the line. This is the sentence that changes Nathanael's life forever. As he's walking up, Jesus says to him, "Before Philip even called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Just try to imagine the shock. Nathanael was completely alone, having a private moment. And this total stranger, who he has never met, sees right into that moment and says, "I saw you."
And right then, in that one instant, poof, all that skepticism just evaporates. It wasn't an argument that won him over. It wasn't some debate about how good or bad Nazareth was. It was a profoundly personal moment of revelation, that feeling of being completely and truly seen. That's what shattered his doubt and turned it into total belief.
So, after all that, what are we supposed to take away from this whole series of events? Well, the source material doesn't just tell us the story. It actually analyzes it to show us these different patterns, these different principles for how people come to join a cause.
Yeah, the source material treats these encounters as way more than just little anecdotes. They're basically case studies, each one illustrating a totally distinct path that someone might take on their journey, from just being curious to being all in.
So let's break down these 4 paths real quick. First, you've got the witness path. That's John the Baptist. His whole job is just to point the way.
Second is the network path, like Andrew, who immediately goes to his family, his inner circle. Third, there's the invitational path, which Philip modeled perfectly. He doesn't argue, he just gives that simple, no-pressure invitation. And finally, you have the revelatory path of Nathanael. This is for the people whose deep-seated skepticism can only be broken by a direct, personal experience.
So the big takeaway here is pretty clear. There is no one-size-fits-all formula. The journey looks different for everybody. Some people hear a testimony and they're ready to go. Others need to hear it from someone they trust, like family. And some, the real skeptics, they need something much more profound to break through those walls. And that's really the whole story of the beginning. It all started with a single declaration. Behold, the Lamb of God, which set off this incredible chain reaction of personal invitations and life-changing encounters. And that's what brought together the very core of a movement that would, literally, change the world.
So it leaves us with one last thing to think about. We've seen the witness, the networker, the inviter, and the skeptic. In our world today, with all the information and influence flying around, which of those paths do you think is the most common, or maybe the most powerful, for how ideas and movements really spread? It's definitely something to chew on.